The alien vessel didn't arrive with fireworks or booming proclamations. It came quietly, like a shadow sliding over the earth. One moment the sky above Nebraska was clear, and the next, there it was a colossal obsidian arc hovering silently above the Platte River, blotting out the sun like the hand of a god. Sergeant Steven Langley was already up when the power went out. He'd been up since 5, running his usual 3 miles in the dark, Nebraska dust still clinging to his boots. He stood at his kitchen sink, wiping sweat from his neck with a dish towel when everything electrical in his house blinked out at once: the fridge, the fan, the blinking clock on the stove. The silence that followed was unnatural, thick. He stepped out onto his porch just in time to see the massive ship descending through the clouds. The coffee mug in his hand slipped and shattered on the wooden steps. "Jesus," he muttered. By the time the military had set up a perimeter around the ship, the world was already watching. Every news channel broadcast the same feed. The black hull of the ship smooth as glass, hovering motionless while jets circled it like anxious bees. Then, without warning, a ramp extended from its belly and a single figure descended. The alien was tall, over 7 feet. Its skin looked like forged bronze, gleaming beneath the sun, and its limbs moved with a mechanical perfection. The being had no armor, no visible weapons, only a long, tattered red sash that looked ceremonial, draped across one shoulder. It walked into the clearing without hesitation, stopping in front of General Merritt, who stood surrounded by soldiers and translators. The alien spoke. Its voice echoed unnaturally, as if vibrating inside every skull present. "I am General Varnox of the Fifth Dominion. I seek your strongest warrior." There was a pause. Soldiers exchanged glances. One translator stammered, "Your strongest what, warrior?" Varnox repeated. "I challenge him." "There will be no war if he wins." "Wait," General Merritt said, stepping forward. "You're saying I will fight him one-on-one. If he defeats me, the Dominion will leave. If I defeat him, Earth becomes a protectorate of the Fifth Dominion. No resistance. No negotiation." The silence that followed was heavy. Sergeant Langley was flown in the same evening. He didn't volunteer. He got a call while sitting on the porch with an ice pack pressed to his knee from an old running injury. 2 black SUVs pulled up and a stern-faced colonel stepped out with orders from the Pentagon. "You're the best we've got," the colonel said. "Combat-tested, survival-trained, and you've beaten the odds more times than we can count." "I'm retired," Steven replied flatly. "Twice. You're still breathing. That's good enough right now." He was flown to the base near the ship, given a psychological evaluation, then shoved into a debriefing room with a dozen analysts debating everything from alien anatomy to potential weak points in Varnox's frame. Steven sat in silence, arms crossed, until someone finally asked, "Feel ready?" "No," he said, "but I'll do it anyway." They gave him a choice of weapons. He picked a simple aluminum baton, figuring agility would matter more than firepower. No one knew what would happen once the fight began. It was agreed the duel would take place in a neutral zone and open field near the base, monitored by satellite and drones. Before dawn, Steven stood facing Varnox in the cold grass. The alien looked down at him with unreadable eyes. "You are Earth's strongest," Varnox asked. "I guess," Steven said. "Then I will break you." The fight began without ceremony. Varnox moved fast and humanly fast, and Steven barely dodged the first blow. The baton cracked against the alien's torso, barely leaving a mark. The second hit through Steven 10 feet into the air. He landed hard, ribs screaming. He rolled to his feet, spitting blood. "Still standing," he grunted. Varnox tilted his head slightly, then lunged again. This time, Steven managed a glancing strike to the alien's temple. It staggered, surprised, but only for a moment. The next blow caught Steven across the chest, and he felt something give. He collapsed, gasping. Medics rushed in before the alien could strike again. Varnox stepped back, arms folded. "He is not your strongest," Varnox said. Steven was taken to the base hospital. X-rays confirmed 2 broken ribs and a fractured scapula. Doctors wrapped his chest and ordered bed rest. He lay in the hospital bed, groggy from painkillers, when General Merritt walked in. "You did good, Langley," the general said. "I lost. You're alive." That's more than anyone expected. Steven looked at the ceiling. "So what now? We're stalling." Varnox agreed to wait for another challenger. Who? That's the problem. 3 days passed. No one else came forward. The world watched in dread. Then, on the 4th day, a woman walked through the base checkpoint carrying a plastic bag and a stubborn expression. She was 72, barely 5 feet tall, wearing a faded floral blouse and orthopedic shoes. Her name was Nora Vancott. She demanded to see Varnox. Security tried to stop her. She refused. Steven was in the recovery ward when he heard shouting in the hallway. He sat up slowly, wincing as the door burst open and Nora marched in. "You're the one who fought that thing?" she asked. Steven blinked. "Yeah, you did it wrong." He stared at her. "Ma'am, I had 3 cracked ribs and a concussion." "You don't fight something like that with brute strength," she said. "You outthink it." She opened the plastic bag and pulled out a house shoe. "You ever seen a kid outrun this?" He blinked again. "What? This," she said, holding it up like a relic, "is the great equalizer. You don't need to be fast. You don't need to be strong. You need to be smarter than the one who thinks he's invincible." Steven looked at the nurse in the doorway, who shrugged helplessly. Nora turned on her heel and stormed out. The next morning, Varnox stood once more in the field. He looked baffled as Nora Vancott walked across the grass, holding her shoe. "I am not here to amuse," Varnox said. "Good," Nora replied. "I'm not here to dance. You are no warrior. I've raised 5 boys and 2 girls, all of them stubborn as mules. You think you scare me? Try getting a teenager out of bed during summer." Varnox stepped forward. "I will not strike an old female. That's your first mistake." She whipped the shoe at his face with surprising force. It hit the side of his head with a thwack and bounced off. Varnox staggered slightly, confused. "What was that?" "Discipline," she said. Varnox lunged. She ducked. The crowd gasped. Cameras caught it from 12 angles. Nora brought the shoe down on the back of his knee. He stumbled. Steven, watching from a wheelchair, whispered, "No way." Nora danced around Varnox like a woman 20 years younger. She wasn't faster, she was unpredictable. Every time Varnox moved, she wasn't where he expected. She hit him in the elbow, the hip, the back of the head. The shoe made a strange slapping sound each time. It wasn't powerful, but it was disruptive. Varnox growled. "Stop moving." "No," he struck out. She dropped to the grass. The blow missed by inches. She jammed the heel of the shoe into a joint behind his ankle. Varnox buckled. She stood over him, winded but still upright. "You done?" Varnox lay there for a moment, then pushed himself to one knee. "You are not the strongest," he said. "No," she agreed. "But I'm the one who raised them." Varnox stood, his gaze unreadable. He turned to General Merritt. "The challenge is satisfied. The 5th Dominion withdraws." And just like that, he walked back to his ship. The world didn't believe it at first. The footage was dissected, analyzed, questioned. But it was real. The ship lifted silently into the sky, disappeared into the clouds, and was never seen again. Steven was discharged 2 weeks later. He still had a limp. Nora visited him at home, brought him pie. "You did good," she said. "I got wrecked. You stood up." "That's what matters." He leaned back in his chair, watching the sunset. "I guess we won," he said. Nora smiled faintly. "No, we reminded them why they shouldn't mess with Earth, and that was enough." 3 days after the Dominion ship vanished, Steven Langley was back under fluorescent lights, this time in a Department of Defense facility buried beneath the Colorado Rockies. He wore a soft brace under his shirt to support the still healing fractures. The hospital in Nebraska hadn't cleared him for stairs, but the Pentagon had decided they needed him anyway. He sat in a chair that wasn't built for comfort, legs stiff, a paper cup of lukewarm tea in his hand. Across from him, a tall humanoid with mottled green skin and eyes like wet marbles sat still as sculpture. Its name was Thils, and it insisted it was not with the Dominion. "That was a rogue challenge," Thils said. "Varnox acted independently. No council-authorized contact. Steven kept his gaze level. Then why are you here? To apologize, and to understand. Phil's jaw clicked when it spoke. Your species should not have survived that encounter, yet you did. This is statistically problematic. Steven sipped the tea. It tasted like cardboard and regret. Wasn't me that one, Phil's blinked slowly. The older female, the one with the domestic shoe, Steven nodded. She exhibited behavior inconsistent with any known combat doctrine, Phil's went on. Auditory intimidation, targeted joint disruption. Psychological destabilization tactics disguised as mundane scolding. She's a grandmother, Steven said. I have studied the term. The role involves mentorship and food distribution, not warfare. Well, sometimes both. Phil's leaned forward slightly. We would like to speak with her. She's not interested. Last I heard, she was yelling at a city councilman about potholes outside her church. This is disappointing. We were instructed to offer her a diplomatic title and territory rights on one of our moons. Steven raised an eyebrow. You're serious? We do not joke. Our species lacks the neurological structure for it. That explains a lot. Phil's paused. Is that sarcasm? Little bit. Fascinating. The door behind Steven opened and a man in a rumpled blue suit stepped in, carrying a folder thick enough to stun a bear. He looked like he hadn't slept in a week. Sergeant, we need to talk about the footage, the man said. Which part? The part where Miss Vancott redirects an alien general with a single raised eyebrow. International agencies are requesting clarification. They're asking if this is some kind of genetic trait. Steven rubbed his forehead. You're telling me NATO wants to know if American grandmothers have built-in anti-alien capabilities? Yes, Phil's interjected. We are also curious. There is growing concern that your species may possess latent cognitive weapons. Cognitive weapons. Unpredictable behavioral responses with destabilizing outcomes. The Dominion is reclassifying your planet as a Class F hazard zone. Steven exhaled slowly. We just got labeled unfit for colonization, didn't we? Correct. The man in the blue suit dropped the folder on the table. This is what happens when the most powerful species in the quadrant gets emotionally compromised by a woman with orthopedic shoes. Steven leaned back, the chair groaning under him. She didn't do anything special, she just refused to be scared. That is not nothing to us, Phil said quietly. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Steven asked, You really thought we'd just roll over? There was debate, Phil's admitted. Some believed your species was too chaotic to unify under pressure. Others thought your aggression would lead to immediate retaliation. No one predicted nonviolent humiliation, Steven chuckled. Welcome to Earth. Phil's turned its head slightly, as if recalibrating. We have studied over 70,000 sentient cultures. Yours is the first to use a household object as a deterrent against galactic conquest. Wait until you meet someone with a wooden spoon, the man in the suit sighed. We need to get ahead of this. There are rumors of other factions sending observers. Not all of them will be as polite as Phil's. Steven set the tea down. So what's the plan? Mobilize? No, we're deploying her to a retirement community in Arizona. Steven blinked. What? We can't have her out in public. She's a symbol now. Some see her as a hero. Others think she's a covert weapon. She waved at a drone yesterday and 3 minor species declared neutrality. She doesn't want to be hidden away. She doesn't have to know it's a security facility. We're disguising it as a luxury complex. She'll have bingo nights and a garden. Phil stood, its joints clicking faintly. I would request to visit her, for cultural exchange purposes. Steven raised a hand. Let me talk to her first. If you show up without warning, she'll throw a slipper at you. Later that evening, Steven boarded a government jet bound for Tucson. The brace itched under his shirt and the pain meds had worn off, but he didn't ask for more. He needed to be sharp. He was met at the airstrip by a woman in beige slacks and a clipboard who led him to a black SUV. As they drove, she explained that the retirement resort had been fully operational for 48 hours, complete with synthetic grass, imported koi, and a professionally curated book club. She thinks she won it in a sweepstakes, the woman said. Steven didn't respond. His ribs ached as the vehicle bumped over a dirt road that led to a gate camouflaged by desert brush. Beyond it, the facility gleamed like a misplaced shopping mall. He found Nora on a padded lounger near a kidney-shaped pool. She wore a wide-brimmed hat and sunglasses the size of satellite dishes, and was reading a mystery novel with a fork stuck in the middle as a bookmark. "Took you long enough," she said without looking up. Steven sank into the chair beside her, exhaling carefully. "You knew I was coming. I know everything before it matters. That's what being old gets you." He watched a hummingbird hover near a cactus sculpture before darting off. "You know this place isn't what it looks like," she flipped the page. "Of course it's not. The guy at the welcome desk had a sidearm and called me ma'am like it was a military rank. They're worried about you. They should be. I've got opinions." Steven laughed, then winced. "You made an impression. Good, maybe now they'll stop sending boys to do grown-ups' work. There's an alien diplomat who wants to meet you. Thils, you know his name. He sent me a fruit basket. Everything was blue. Tasted like furniture polish. He wants to understand how you did it." She closed the book. "Tell him I didn't. That alien beat you with moves learned from a war doctrine. I beat him with disappointment and arthritis." "Not the same thing. He doesn't see it that way. Then he needs better glasses." Steven leaned forward slightly. "You're a symbol now, Nora, whether you like it or not." She looked at him over her sunglasses. "Symbols don't get left alone. I want to be left alone." "They're not going to." "Not yet." She was quiet for a moment. "Then you still limping?" "Yeah, you want pie," he blinked. "You have pie, two kinds. The fridge is a lie detector test. If you open it and don't smile, it alerts the staff." Steven stood slowly. "You're taking all this surprisingly well. I've been through worse. Once got stuck in a stalled elevator with a dentist who wouldn't stop talking about molars. Galactic threats are easier." As they walked back toward her unit, Steven noticed a small drone hovering just above the garden wall. Nora waved at it. The drone hesitated, then zipped away like a terrified insect. She watched it go. "They're learning," Steven nodded. "We all are." The retirement complex Nora had been placed in or tricked into, depending on who was asked, was surrounded by a desert that shimmered with heat and the faint whiff of sagebrush. From the inside, though, it was all manicured walkways, synthetic hummingbird feeders, and folded towels shaped like desert animals. It had been 5 days since Steven Langley arrived, and he still hadn't fully adjusted to how quiet everything was. Not the peaceful kind of quiet. The kind you get when someone is watching you from behind mirrored glass. He was sitting on a bench under a pergola that smelled faintly of lavender spray and disinfectant. His ribs had started to itch under the brace, a sign of healing. He'd been told, though, the ache in his left shoulder still flared any time he twisted too far. He was halfway through a crossword puzzle when a shadow fell across the page. "I brought you something," Nora said, holding out a plastic container with a rubber-sealed lid. "Please tell me it's not that blue fruit again. It's meatloaf, my own recipe. You eat it, or I'll feed it to the squirrels and ruin their week." He took the container and set it on the bench beside him. "I'm not supposed to eat anything that requires chewing on the left side." She sat down next to him, watching a cactus wren dart across the path. "You ever think about how strange it is," she said, "that they're treating me like a weapon and I still need to water my petunias twice a day? They're not used to people like you, I know. That's why I keep waving at their drones." "Makes them nervous." Steven stretched his leg out, the one that still had a dull stiffness in the knee. "You ever think," he said, "that maybe they're not scared of you because you beat up some alien general, but because you didn't care that you were supposed to be scared?" She looked at him, then back at the path. "So what if I was scared? You think I wasn't shaking a little?" "I just didn't let him see it. That's what age gives you, not fearlessness, just better poker skills." Steven didn't reply. A breeze carried a swirl of sand across the concrete. The air smelled faintly of ozone, something he'd learned to associate with alien tech. "By the way," Nora added without changing expression, "your friend's back, the green one with the wrist bones on the outside." Steven turned his head too quickly and winced. He didn't say why, just appeared at the perimeter. No ship this time. "Said he wanted to observe my daily cycle. I told him to get in line behind my laundry." Steven stood stiffly and reached for the meatloaf. "I'll go talk to him. Bring him a napkin." He drools when he's curious. He found Thils standing by a palm tree near the edge of the property, flanked by two facility guards who were clearly trying not to look as uncomfortable as they felt. Thils's skin had a dry, papery texture today, and its posture was unusually rigid, arms at its sides, feet together, like it was trying to perform etiquette by feel. "You're late," Steven said. "I had to pass through 6 quarantine zones." "My presence is still considered diplomatically awkward." "You're not the only one." Thils tilted its head slightly. "May I walk with you?" Steven gestured toward the trail that looped around the koi pond. They walked in silence for a few minutes, the gravel crunching underfoot. Thils's gait had a mechanical rhythm, like it had copied a marching band's video as reference. "You wanted to observe her cycle," Steven said. "You realize she makes half her schedule up as she goes. That is why I must observe. Our projections fail to account for improvisation. It is elusive. She's not a system, she's a person. But humans exhibit patterns, even within chaos. We need to know if this level of behavioral unpredictability is common." Steven stopped walking. "You're worried this could happen again?" "That someone else like her could show up." Thils's eyes didn't blink. "Yes, we are concerned Earth may be incompatible with structured diplomacy. Some factions are advocating total disengagement." "Is that bad?" "It means we would never offer you entry into the Galactic Accord. Your species would be contained because of one old woman. No, because of how easily you accepted what she did. No riots, no panic, just acceptance, celebration even. You normalized the anomalous." Steven folded his arms. "We've had to normalize the impossible for a long time. We're good at it." "That is what terrifies them." They walked again, slower this time. A hummingbird zipped past, paused, and zipped away. "I brought something," Thils said quietly, reaching into a pouch on its side. Steven tensed just slightly. But Thils pulled out a small cube, opaque and humming softly. "It's not a weapon, it's a memory archive." Steven took it cautiously. "I don't have a reader for this. It's encoded for her. If she places a hand on it, it will play a recording from Varnox." Steven looked up. "He survived, yes. He returned to his homeworld. There was controversy. He chose to resign." "What's the message?" "I haven't seen it. It's keyed to her neural pattern, but he recorded it voluntarily." Steven nodded and turned it over in his hands. "You think she'll want to hear it?" "I do not know, but I believe she deserves the choice." "Then I'll give it to her." Thils stopped walking. "There is one more thing," it said. "We've been monitoring a pattern. After the incident, there's been a measurable shift in how other species perceive humanity. Not just in fear, in curiosity. Some are beginning to see you as instructive." Steven raised an eyebrow. "Instructive how? In how you endure, how you adapt. How you make the absurd seem survivable. We don't have a choice. That is what makes it powerful." Later that evening, just after the sun dipped below the mountains and the pool lights flicked on in lazy colors, Steven found Nora in her unit, sitting at a table with a jigsaw puzzle half finished in front of her. "You bring more meatloaf?" she asked without looking up. "No, something else." He set the cube down on the table. It vibrated faintly like a sleeping animal. "What is it?" "Message from Varnox." She stared at it, then leaned back in her chair. "I don't need an apology." "Might not be one. Then I definitely don't need it." Steven waited. After a while, she reached out and placed her hand on top. The cube lit up with a soft, amber glow, and a holographic image appeared, not of Varnox, but his homeworld. Red skies, jagged mountains, violet oceans. Then his voice came, quieter than either expected. "I was not defeated by strength. I was undone by something I never trained to face. You did not seek victory, you simply refused to lose. That is not weakness. It is something we lost long ago. Thank you for reminding me. The light faded. The cube went still. Nora exhaled, slow and measured. Good, she said. Now he can sleep at night. Steven sat down across from her. You want me to take it? No, I'll keep it. Might use it to scare off solicitors. They finished the puzzle together in silence. The last piece clicked into place just before midnight. By the time Steven left the next morning, the surveillance drones had been pulled back and the guards were reassigned to less sensitive posts. Phils left a note in the form of a plant that bloomed in Morse code. Nora planted it next to the tomatoes. There were no parades, no medals, just a quiet shift in how Earth was watched, not with suspicion, with caution, with awe. And far, far away, in councils and circles where power was traded like currency, a new term began to circulate: Vancott Protocol. It meant, proceed with respect, or risk the shoe.